It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the San Francisco Giants. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Thursday evening to you, wherever you may be. Giants and Dodgers, need we say any more? First game of a four-game series. Giants hold the edge. They've won 4 of 6, and they lead the Dodgers in the standings by 2.5 games. The pitchers, it'll be Ryan Vogelsong on the mound for San Francisco. He made 2 starts against the Dodgers. No record, but the Giants won both games, and he comes in here 4-3 lifetime against Los Angeles. For the Dodgers, talking about no decisions, Josh Beckett has 4 of them already this year. He is 0-1, a loss to Miami, and Josh has not won a game in his last 13 starts. You have to go back to the end of September 2012 when he beat Colorado. The numbers about the two claims kind of interesting. First of all, the Giants are off to the best start since 2003 when they wound up winning 100 games, winning the West by 15.5. The Dodgers starting off slowly 6-9. Last time they did that, well, they won the wild card. Before that, their worst start, 5-11, and they won the National League West. So those are some of the pregame numbers. Pull up a chair. It's the Giants and the Dodgers. We'll have the ball game and a lot more coming up right after this.
Dodgers and Giants getting ready to go as the fans come into the stadium. Dodgers very happy to be back in sunny LA after some weather issues, some inconsistencies in the schedule. Very happy to be back home. And as we take a look at the Coors Light cold hard facts, the Dodgers are leading the National League in 35 players used this season. Many reasons for that. Australia trip, talking to Nomar Garcia-Pari earlier, he said that was a major issue for them, and inconsistencies in schedule. They've had pitching changes, a lot of injuries as of late, so they've had to bring out a lot more players because of that. when we come back to Dodger Stadium. Vince Scully on the call, Dodgers and Giants.
Thursday evening to you, wherever you may be. It's a lovely evening here in Southern California as the Dodgers take the field in pursuit of the San Francisco Giants. Tonight, Game 1 of what pivotal to be an extremely important 4-game series. Bruce Bochy brings his ball club in here. They won 10 out of 11 to spurt out in front of the West. Of late, they have lost 2 in a row. So he's trying to turn things around on a ball club that is having a great start, 21-13. You go back to 2003, they started 25-9 and went on to win 100 games and the West by 15.5 games. Angel Pagan will be in the leadoff role, and we can take a look now as he loosens up to the names on Bruce Bochy's card. So Pagan in center field, followed by Hunter Pence, and then Buster Posey behind the plate. Michael Morse in left field. Brandon Belt living up to that name the last couple of games. Pablo Sandoval, Brandon Crawford at short, Brandon Hicks at second, and on the mound Ryan Vogelsong. Josh Beckett on the hill for the Dodgers, looking for his first win since September the 30th, 2012. He's made 13 consecutive starts without a win. This year, he's had 4 no decisions. He is 0-1 with the league, the loss against Miami. And he faced the Giants one last year and was 0-1. This Giant offense is pretty exciting for those who love offensive baseball. First of all, they're number 1 in home runs against left-handers. They're number 1 in home runs on the road. Their home runs number 1 on the first pitch in the game. They are home runs by right-handed batters. They have 26, 16 by left-handers. They have the second highest number of sacrifices, and they score with 2 outs. They're number 1, scoring 68 runs with 2 outs. So Angel Pagan who's been a wonderful leadoff man, checks in, left-hand batter, holds up on a pitch for a strike, and the count 0-1. Angel Pagan, switch hitter, batting overall .320 and hitting .315 from the left side. Josh Beckett comes right back. A breaking ball lifted to right field. Puig jogging, settles under it, and one hands it for the out. So Pagan on a fly ball, one down, and the batter will be Hunter Pence. We can take a look at the Dodgers with the leather, and they shape up this way. Crawford, Kemp, and Puig in the outfield. The infield going from third to first. Uribe, Ramirez, Gordon, and Gonzalez. And the battery of Drew Butera behind the plate handling Josh Beckett. The batter now is Hunter Pence, a constant motion type player, very exciting and highly talented. Right-hand batter takes low, ball one. He's a grinder. He'll play in every game, and that's exactly what he's done last year. He has been in every game right now. So Hunter Pence followed by Buster Posey. Big breaking ball, but it's outside. 2 balls and no strikes. Posey, big man, especially with runners on base. So 2-0 the count to Hunter Pence. Dodgers load up the left side of the infield, and Hunter takes down and away. 3-0. So D. Gordon has crossed the line. He's on the other side of second base, and the outfield very deep and straight away. Hunter Pence checking in, hitting .256, 2 home runs, 9 runs batted in. Right-hand batter takes an inside corner pitch for a strike, and that runs it to 3-1. So a very good Giant offense. In fact, the Giants are on a pace to hit 201 home runs. That would be almost the total of the home runs they hit last year and the year before. That totaled at 210. 3-1 pitch on the way. Hunter Pence swings. Big chopper to the middle man. That's Hanley Ramirez to throw him out. So they load up the left side, and sure enough, they get a ground ball to short. And with 2 away, the batter will be Buster Posey. It was a wonderful article in the LA Times today talking about the Giants and the Dodgers, those players who have played for both teams. They were also talking about dramatic trades, and the number one, I guess, that shook everybody up here was when Juan Marichal, who certainly was a most disliked Giant pitcher, became a Dodger. Posey, meanwhile, takes outside, ball one. And, of course, it brought back memories in New York. The most hated Giant pitcher when he came to Brooklyn was Sal Maglie. The 1-0 pitch, a change, misses for ball two. And wouldn't you know, one day Sal Maglie all of a sudden became a Dodger, just as Brian Wilson shocked everybody by becoming a Dodger. The 2-0 pitch is taken high and away. 3-0 the count to Posey. Posey gets a lot of hits. He's had 10 hits in his first at bat so far this year. Buster hitting on the number 3 slot, hitting back of him Michael Morse. The 3-0 pitch, and that is low and away, ball 4. So with 2 out in the first inning, Posey draws the walk, and the batter will be Michael Morse. And certainly one of the reasons that the Giants are thinking about home runs, they made the deal to get Morse to give them some sock in left field. I think all of the left fielders combined last year for the Giants had a total of 5 home runs. Well, Michael Morse has 8 already this year. So Morse checking in, big right-hand batter. Posey over there at first. Beckett out of his stretch, checks, ready, comes to the plate, drops a breaking ball low and inside, ball 1. For Michael Morse, with his 8 home runs, 24 runs batted in, he's already proven to be a very, very powerful asset, just what the Giants needed. Posey takes his lead. Gonzalez holding. The 1-0 pitch. Big breaking ball for a strike. And the count 1-1. Buster Posey does not have a stolen base. You don't expect him to do any running. Nevertheless, with a right-hand hitter at the plate, Gonzalez is right on the bag over there at first. Posey inching away. A look by Beckett. a long look. Now the 1-1 pitch down and away. A nice pick by Drew Butera behind the plate. And the count 2 balls and 1 strike. So Michael Morse checking in. One thing we'll check now. He had grounded into 5 double plays so far this year. They don't have to worry about that. But with 2 out, we'll see if perhaps Bruce Bochy plays hit and run with a big, powerful free swinger. Posey takes a cautious lead. Beckett watches. He's not going. Pitch is swung on and missed. And that evens it up. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Michael Morse has been a very solid hitter, especially for the last 2 weeks. He's hit .327 over that stretch. So Morse on a 2-2 count. Posey at first. 2 out first inning, no score. Beckett a high set up around the collarbone. Back with a fastball a little high. And the count runs to 3-2. So Posey will be going, and on a full count with 2 down, Gonzalez, who is celebrating his 32nd birthday today, is hanging right on the corner to take a step away from him. 3-2 the count to Michael Morse. Out of his stretch goes Beckett, looking over at Posey, who goes, and the pitch is taken inside, ball 4. So Beckett with 2 out. Pitch carefully to Posey and walked him. Pitch carefully to Morse and walks him. And now here comes Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt would be 2 different hitters, just as the Giants in some ways would be a different ball club. For instance, the Giants in the daytime are 10-3 and 6-1 on the road. At night, 11-10. Well, Belt at home, 1 home run, 3 runs batted in. On the road, 8 home runs, 14 runs batted in. So Beckett ready and delivers. Brandon takes a pitch way off the plate. 1 ball and no strikes. Belt with 7 home runs hit on the road. As a left-handed hitter, he's piled a total of 9, 16 of his RBIs on the road. Half a dozen home runs against right-hand pitching. 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on, pop foul out of play, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. Brandon Belt fighting it a little bit, but coming out of it on this road trip hitting .333. Though Brandon a threat every time he checks in at the plate. Posey at second, Morse at first, 2 out, and we are just starting. Beckett again set high up around the collarbone, looks back at Posey, Ramirez directly behind him. Now Josh Reddy and delivers fastball, but that's low. 2-1 the count. So Beckett now struggling a bit. He's made 20 pitches, mostly because of the back-to-back walks to Posey and Morse. 2-1 the count. Beckett looks into Butera to get a sign. Outfield straight away. And the next pitch is swung on and fouled back. And the count 2-2. For the Giants coming to Dodger Stadium, they're very comfortable here. They've won 5 of the last 6 that they've played. And, of course, they've won 4 of 6 so far this year. The last 3 games we saw were really something as Matt Cain looks on. And, by the way, they were announcing to be announced as far as the pitcher for Saturday. And we have word Matt Cain is definitely pitching against Zach Greinke Saturday at 1:10. 2-2 pitch coming up. Beckett ready. Here he comes. Swung on and missed. Down goes Belt and the Giants. No runs, no hits, 2 left. Tough inning as far as the number of pitches. Now it's time for Vogelsong to get ready. And at the end of half an inning, no score. of walks and lead 2. And the Dodgers now coming up. We'll take a look at the Dodger lineup. D. Gordon leads off at second base, followed by Yasiel Puig in right, Hanley Ramirez at short, Adrian Gonzalez at first, Matt Kemp in center field, Carl Crawford in left, Juan Uribe at third, Drew Butera behind the plate, and on the mound, Josh Beckett. Big Ryan Vogelsong tuning up, 6'4", 215, lives in Massachusetts, born in Charlotte, North Carolina, went to Kutztown University in Pennsylvania. Among other things, had Tommy John surgery in 2001, pitched in the Orient for a couple of years in Japan, and now coming back and trying to win back-to-back games for the first time since September of 2012. He is making his 27th start since that win in San Diego. So Ryan ready to go to work. Right-hander's first pitch to D. Gordon is off the plate, 1 ball and no strikes. Gordon, a tremendous leadoff man, not only hitting .341, which is a huge surprise, but he also has stolen 20 bases. Vogelsong, who has not pitched well at night, delivers the pitch, slapped, a line drive knocked down by Sandoval to throw him out. That was a bullet. If it avoids Sandoval's glove, the way Gordon runs, that would have been a double. And it was too hot to handle in and out of Sandoval's glove, but it dropped right at his feet, and he made the play. So 1 away. Gordon grounds and lines out. And Yasiel Puig coming up with a 7-game hitting streak. Ryan Vogelsong, interesting, as he works on Puig, batting .310, 4 home runs, 22 runs batted in. Vogelsong at home has an ERA of 2.5. Away, his ERA is almost 8, 7.9. Slow breaking ball in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Puig with that 7-game streak, waiting at the plate. Bottom of the first inning, 1 out, no score. Vogelsong teaming up against Beckett for game 1. Throws the next one to the backstop, and a 1 ball, 1 strike count. No score. Things are just starting, and I mean starting and warming up. A 4-game series between the Giants and the Dodgers really gets your attention. Vogelsong looks in, getting a sign from Buster Posey. Long look in. Now Ryan is ready. 1-1 pitch on the way. Puig has a look. It's in for a low strike in the sense that Puig bent at the waist to look at it. Paul Schreiber is the plate umpire. Schreiber's been umpiring in the big leagues for over 16 years. He's out of Oregon. Played baseball in college, among other things. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Vogelsong delivers. That's a little lower. And 2-2. Puig almost reacts as if to say that was the same pitch, same spot. Shakes his head as if to say it should be 3-1. But it's 2-2. And Yasiel slowly getting back in. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 1 out. Bases empty. Yasiel Puig waiting. And too long, tires and backs out. Hitting behind Puig, Hanley Ramirez in the number 3 slot. 2-2 pitch on the way, and that's taken low and away. Ball 3. So obviously Vogelsong very much trying to keep the ball down, and he's gone all the way. Dodgers have to be more than happy to be home. I mean, they have to be ecstatic to be home when you consider what they went through. And it all started on the first day of the road trip when they were rained out, and it went downhill from there. 3-2 pitch swung on, line drive, speared by the first baseman Belt. So 2 line drives, 1 at Pedro Sandoval, and now this one a one-handed reach and grab by Brandon Belt. Otherwise, 2 solid base hits for the Dodgers. So a hard ground ball that was a line drive dropped, and now the line drive speared So for Vogelsong, he has to be singing another song gratefully now with 2 down, bases empty, and Hanley Ramirez checking in. When you think about what the Dodgers went through, a rain out. They had an 8-hour doubleheader. They had 2 rain delays, 3 hours and 17, and the other about an hour and 40. Ground ball to short. Crawford up with it, throws him out. So 1-2-3, but you had to see him to see how fortunate Vogelsong was to get through the first inning. And at the end of an inning, no score. We have a start of a good infield plus a star outfielder, young lady directly behind the big 3. We go to the second inning, no score. Pablo Sandoval, Brandon Crawford, and then Brandon Hicks. Sandoval, switch hitter, batting left-handed, drives one down the left field line, foul, well back into the crowd, and the count 0-1. Sandoval is struggling, and he's such a good hitter, has always been such a good hitter. It gives you an indication of just how tough it is to stay on a familiar pace. He's hitting only 174. Sandoval swings, ground ball, a one-hopper to the birthday boy, and taken to the bag goes Gonzalez, and we have 1 out. A difference in pitches made. 22 pitches made by Beckett in the first inning thanks to the 2 walks. Meanwhile, Vogelsong, who gave up 2 hard line drives, only made 9 pitches. So here now is Brandon Crawford. The last time we saw Crawford, he was really struggling. But now he has gotten well. He's hit safely in 11 of his last 13. He has also started of 30 of the first 34 at short. And takes the first pitch and it misses for ball 1. 1-0 the count. Brandon Crawford backed up by Brandon Hicks. Crawford, a first ball hitter, but he took that one. And the 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's outside. So Beckett is missed in and out, and maybe he's a first pitch hitter if he gets a strike. Brandon in and out of the box. 2-0 pitch on the way. Sure enough, it's in the strike zone, and he goes after it and fouls it back. And the count 2-1 to Brandon Crawford. Comes in hitting .265. 3 home runs, 15 runs batted in. Brandon went to school down here at UCLA. Beckett checking with Butera, and the 2-1 pitch on the way. Fastball outside, 3-1. So Beckett pitching dangerous in the fact that he's behind to some hitters. Waiting on deck, Brandon Hicks. 3 balls, 1 strike. No score, top of the second inning. Beckett says no, now says yes and comes in 3-1. That's swung on and fouled back, and the count 3-2. Brandon backs out, heaves a sigh. If you remember the story about Brandon Crawford, his parents were season ticket holders at Candlestick, so he just joined the club at the perfect time, and they're now season ticket holders at AT&T Park. He holds off on ball 4. So Beckett has now walked 3 in an inning and a third, and the batter now will be Brandon Hicks.
Second baseman, number 14, Brandon Hicks.
Brandon Hicks, right-hand batter. Brandon hitting .198. He does have 5 home runs and 11 runs batted in. So Crawford off the bag. He's just a break-even base stealer, at least going into the game. He has stolen 2 and he's been caught twice. Beckett watching him, comes to the plate, swung on and missed, and the count 0-1. Beckett deep in thought, fighting his control a little bit. No score, second inning. Another long look in. Josh is a slow and deliberate pitcher anyway. The strike one pitch inside. He is slow and deliberate even when he's throwing strikes, and when he's struggling a bit, as he is right now, he's extra deliberate. Hitting behind is the pitcher, Ryan Vogelsong. Hicks waiting. He's trying to be patient. Beckett again looks over at Crawford. Long look now to the plate. Swung on and missed. 1-2 the count. Brandon Hicks is out of College Station, Texas, and went to school at Texas A&M. Originally a third-round pick by the Braves, and came up to the Braves briefly in 07, again in 10, 11, then went over to the Coast League and surfaced with the Giants. Throw to first, not in time. One ball and 2 strikes the count. Top of the second inning, no score in the ball game. The big question on Hicks is whether he will hit enough in the big league. So far holding his own. Big sweeping curveball in the dirt. 2-2 the count. 34 pitches made now. So Beckett making a bunch of picks. It might be a good idea to look it up. And in his games this year, his pitch count, he's coming off a game in Miami where he made 113 pitches and he walked only 1. Here's the 2-2 pitch coming up. Hicks waits, takes a slow curveball that floats in for a strike. Boy, you talk about a rainbow curve. That was just a big bender. Hicks looking for anything but the big lollipop that it was, and down goes Brandon. So second strikeout, and the batter now will be Ryan Vogelsong. Vogelsong had a 2 RBI game against the Dodgers last time he faced them. He swings, doesn't get it. 0-1. Ryan gives you that nice strike zone. 6'4", 215 pounds. The next one slapped foul down the right field line back into the crowd. So suddenly, and for the first time, Beckett gets out in front to a hitter. No balls and 2 strikes. Up to now, it's been a labor. Ryan kind of wandering around. I don't know whether he might have hurt his hand a little bit. Yeah, that's what he did. His right hand. No balls and 2 strikes. Vogelsong collects. Here comes a big curveball, but it's inside. 1-2 the count. Curveball started almost at Vogelsong's shoulder. He flinched, got out of the way of it. 1-2. Giants have Crawford at first with 2 out, but he's not going to go anywhere with a pitcher at the plate. And an off-speed pitch at 72 misses. So again, Beckett now working hard. This will be his 40th pitch and the 18th of the inning. Angel Pagan waiting on deck. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Beckett deals fastball foul back. So at 92, you think to yourself, if you can't get your fastball by the pitcher, something is amiss. Vogelsong had a pretty good swing at that 92-mile-an-hour pitch and fouled it back. Josh says no to Butera. Now they're in agreement. And the 2-2 pitch coming up. Vogelsong takes inside, ball 3. So Beckett has already walked 3. He doesn't want to walk the opposing pitcher. Now the 3-2 pitch coming up. There goes Crawford. It's swung on, little ground ball. Who's going to take it? It's Uribe who throws to first. He was directly in front of Hanley Ramirez. So no runs, no hits, a man left. And at the end of an inning and a half, no score. Inning, no score, and a reminder, Tuesday at 7:10, the Dodgers and the Marlins. And the first 50,000 fans at the game will receive a Yasiel Puig bobblehead. Compliments of Bank of America. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Bottom of the second inning, no score. Ryan Vogelsong ready to go against the Dodgers. Gonzalez, Kemp, and Crawford. Brian's dad has worked for the same shoe company for 47 years. His mom is a homemaker. He has one relative, a brother, who's 4 years older. In fact, his brother, last we heard, lives out here in Hollywood. Brian, at 6'4", played baseball, basketball, and soccer, and now he has to concentrate on Adrian Gonzalez, 32 years old today. Hitting .281, 9 home runs, 28 runs batted in, and he certainly has his share of fans here tonight. So Gonzalez, then Kemp, then Crawford. They put up a deep right side. They don't load it up, but they put Hicks out into shallow right field. Adrian takes on the outside corner for a strike. Brandon Crawford is not totally committed. He's still on the shortstop side. Pablo Sandoval way off the line at third, however. Strike one pitch on the way is swung on and missed. 0-2 the count. Adrian Gonzalez. The Yankees years ago had a wonderful right fielder named Tommy Henrich, and he had the nickname Ole Reliable. Not old, but Ole, O-L-E, reliable. And that seems to apply to Gonzalez, who fouls it away. Still up there, 0-2. Gonzalez tied for second in the National League with his 9 home runs. Tied for third in RBIs. Slugging average is up there in the top 10. Extra base hits up there in the top 10. Vogelsong ready. Ryan delivers a little high. 1-2. In the past, Gonzalez has a home run and hitting .300 against Vogelsong. Waiting on deck, Matt Kemp. No score, bottom of the second, and the 1-2 pitch on the way. A change swung on and hit to third. Sandoval up with it and throws him out. Actually, if you wanted the placement of the ground ball, it was at shortstop, but that's where Sandoval was. A changeup, which is not a bad idea. It was really a bad pitch, and it was a kind of pitch with a shift on. Gonzalez can hit to left field. He hit it perfectly, but unfortunately right at Sandoval, who was playing in the hole at shortstop. So one away. Now the batter will be Matt Kemp, upon whose shoulders naturally a great deal relies. He had a good road trip. Hit 10 for 32. And he's been red hot since the game in Miami. Ground ball wide of third. Sandoval, a good pick, juggled it but throws him out. So 2 in a row and 5 down, 5 up. And the batter now will be Carl Crawford, trying to get something started. Remember, the last 3 games these teams played in San Francisco. The first game went 12 innings and the Giants won that game 3-2. The next game, the Giants came right back and won 2-1. And then the third game, the Dodgers won 2-1. So with 2 out, here the left-hand hitting Carl Crawford. He takes a strike and the count 0-1. He had a very good road trip, going 11 for 30. Won a game, remember, with a late inning home run. He has hit in 5 straight. And the strike one pitch. Swung on and missed. 0-2. So Vogelsong is getting the job done. He's throwing strikes. He retired 5 in a row. Beckett is struggling with his control and has made 42 pitches in 2 innings. No balls, 2 strikes. Vogelsong delivers. Got him looking on the outside corner. And that's 6 in a row retired by Ryan. Dodgers go down without making a murmur of protest. And at the end of 2, no score. Game, the Giants and the Dodgers breaking the seal on a 4-game series. Tomorrow it'll be Madison Bumgarner and Paul Maholm. Saturday afternoon, Matt Cain and Zach Greinke. Slow breaking ball for a strike to Pagan. 0-1 the count. The concluding game, as Madison Bumgarner is up on the top shelf, it will be Tim Hudson and Clayton Kershaw. So that'll be a dandy. 0-1 the count. Angel Pagan, who flied to right field in the first inning. And he hits a hopper to the left, and Ramirez goes to it and makes the play. So 1 away. And, of course, Beckett would like to get to an inning with a minimum number of pitches. He made 22 in the first inning, 20 in the second, in direct contrast to Vogelsong, who made 9 pitches in the first inning and only 9 pitches in the second inning. So here's Hunter Pence, the restless one. Can barely stay in the box. Constantly fidgeting, constantly moving, rocking back and forth, up and down with the knees. Dodgers load up the left side on him, and 1 ball and no strikes. Pence, terrific player, an all-out player every time you're going to see him. 1 ball, no strikes. Hunter swings, hits one foul off first base. Should go back into the stands. Gonzalez over to watch, and it does indeed. Hunter, a great philosopher, moved around a lot as his child, mostly in Texas and in Colorado. And he said, you know, moving around a lot, making friends wherever I went, has really helped me being traded in the league. There's a flare over the head that will drop into center field for a base hit. Gordon, who had moved over, had no chance to get it. So Hunter Pence, a looping single to center. First hit of the game. And Buster Posey coming up. Buster Posey has been a dynamite hitter with men on base. In fact, in his career, Posey is hitting .327 with men on base. So Hunter Pence is certainly right there. Among other things about Pence, he runs on a club that doesn't run a lot. Pence has stolen 5 out of 6. Beckett watching him. As always, very deliberate and out of the plate. Fastball low, ball 1. It's been a rare moment when Beckett has been able to be out in front of a hitter. One reason that Buster Posey is so good with men on base, he is a true contact hitter. Here's the 1-0 pitch taken low, ball 2, 2-0. In fact, if you look it up, you see that Buster Posey has struck out only 15 times all year. He's walked 14. So anytime you find a hitter with that kind of a setup where he has almost as many walks as strikeouts, you have quite a number 3 hitter. And Pence, of course, loves to run. So he's at first, the 2-0 pitch on the way, and that's high. So Beckett continues his battle trying to throw strikes. And he's behind now. With a contact hitter like Posey and his discipline at the plate, they might very easily let him swing 3-0, knowing he won't swing at a pitch unless it's in a perfect spot. Beckett ready, 3-0 pitch. Posey takes a strike, 3-1. A lot of times they'll green light a good hitter, but unless it's in that spot where he can really drive the ball, he'll lay off it. So Beckett pitching behind again and again, and you wonder just how long you can get by doing that. We'll watch Pence 3-1. So is Beckett. Josh very, very deliberate. There goes Pence, and the pitch is hit down the right field line, foul, and into the crowd down in the corner. 3-2 the count. One of the great bits of advice that Buster Posey received from his dad, and it's a good idea for all of us, but especially if you're a competitive athlete. His father told him, no matter what's going on, if things are going good or going bad, carry yourself the same way so no one can tell the difference. Well, we see if he went 3-1. Pence figures to go 3-2. Beckett ready. There he goes, and the pitch is hit in the air to center, going back on it is Kemp to the track at the wall to make the catch, and Pence has to turn and hustle back. So Posey just missed. He sent Kemp to the track for the long out and also for the second out. So 2 down. Pence going with his head down, heard the crowd roar, looked up to see Kemp going all the way back, making the catch 3 strides from the wall. So a fine play by Matt Kemp. Posey back in the dugout. And here's Michael Morse, who walked in the first inning. We mentioned about the left fielders last year for the Giants. Morse takes an off-speed pitch for a strike, and the count 0-1. The Giant left fielders had 5. To give you an idea what that meant, Colorado Rockies left fielders had 31. This year, the Giant left fielder with 8. There goes the runners. A check swing ground ball to Gonzalez, who flips to Beckett in time for the out. So Pence started to go. The check swing by Morse. That will be that. No runs, 1 hit. And at the end of 2.5 innings, despite the long out to center, no score. Secret that Josh Beckett is struggling. He's made 55 pitches in 3 innings. He's had a half a dozen 3-ball counts. He has walked 3, but most importantly, no score as we go to the bottom of the 3rd inning. For Josh Beckett, he's due to bat 3rd. It'll be Uribe, then Butera, and then Josh. So Juan Uribe going up against his old club. And Vogelsong Deal starts him with a strike, and the count 0-1. Dodgers retired in a row, 6 in a row, but the first 2 outs were the hard way. 2 line drives off the bat of Gordon and Puig. Little ball squirted off the end of the bat wide of first. The feed by Belt to his pitcher covering, and Uribe goes quietly. 3-1 if you're scoring, and the batter now will be Drew Butera. Drew Butera doing a fine job behind the plate, hitting .222. He has 2 home runs, 4 runs batted in. Backed up now by Miguel Oliva. And meanwhile, A.J. Ellis is rehabbing, and we would expect him back in not too many more games to go by. So Butera checks in, right-hand hitter. Vogelsong ready and deals, and the pitch down and away. Ball 1, 1-0. In Washington, Drew Butera hit a big 3-run home run in the 8th inning. The 1-0 pitch on the way to Drew. Fastball foul back to the screen, and the count 1-1. Beckett on deck, no score. Giants had 2 men on base on walks in the 1st inning. They had Crawford reach in the 2nd on a walk, Pence reach in the 3rd on a single. So far they've left 4, and we have no score. The 1-1 pitch off the plate, 2-1. Dodgers, meanwhile, 7 in a row have been retired by Ryan Vogelsong. Vogelsong, especially up in San Francisco, is an inspiration. The 2-1 pitch swung on, popped foul behind the plate. Posey takes a look, but no play. And the count 2-2. Give you an idea of how someone can really rise and surprise. Ryan Vogelsong was a non-roster spring training player in 2011. Non-roster. The odds of him making the club were really overwhelming. He wound up pitching in the All-Star game that year. 2-2 pitch on the way. Swung on, sliced foul off to the right. So it's still 2-2. We've mentioned it before. Vogelsong came out of a game in San Francisco and was overwhelmed. He had a standing ovation for the innings that he had pitched, and he took his cap off, held it to the crowd, and they went bananas. Everybody who might be sitting down on his feet to join the applause. Pitch outside, ball 3. It was such a memorable moment. They had a picture of it in the paper, and his wife had the picture as a painting, and it's hanging in one of the rooms at home. He said that's the biggest thrill he has ever had, more than World Series and All-Star games and everything else. The roar of the crowd. 3-2 pitch, check swing, little roller up along first. Belt will do it himself. So Butera taps out on a check swing, 2 down.
Pitcher number 61, Josh Beckett.
Josh Beckett coming up. Remember, Ryan Vogelsong, among other things, is trying to win back-to-back starts for the first time since September the 28th of 2012. Well, Beckett is trying to pick up a victory for the first time since September the 30th, 2012. So 2 pretty hungry pitchers locked up in this one. Vogelsong delivers a strike, 0-1 to count. No balls, 1 strike, 2 out, bases empty, bottom of the 3rd, no score. Beckett takes off the plate. Beckett has had 8 at-bats. He is 0 for 8. He has struck out 4 of the 8 times. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Half swing for a strike, 1-2. You know what I love? Take a look at Beckett, a pitcher who's not known as a hitter, and his hands are right down on the knob. I mean, he has got that Babe Ruth grip, that Mickey Mantle grip. And the pitch off the plate, ball 2. I've always wondered why. I mean, let's face it, you're a pitcher. You figure if you choke up, yes, you're going to give a little power, but what power do you have anyway? And you would think you have more control if you choke up on the bat. And as soon as I say that, of course, you'll get a base hit. 2-2. Foul ball. Though Josh is still there. 2-2. D. Gordon, who has really become a standout for the Dodgers as a leadoff man and a second baseman, waiting on deck. Two balls and 2 strikes to Josh. Vogelsong delivers high fly ball into shallow right. It will be Pence, and that'll do it. So Beckett makes contact, flies to right. More importantly, Vogelsong has retired 9 in a row, and at the end of 3, no score. LA is brought to you by Honda. This is not a drill. Get a great deal on a new Honda right now during the Spring Into a Honda sales event. No score as we work our way to the 4th inning. There's been quite a 3 innings first for Josh Beckett, struggling with his control, able to wiggle off a hook. The Giants have left 4 in 3 innings. On the other side of the coin, Ryan Vogelsong has been brilliant. He's retired 9 in a row. He's only made 33 pitches and 6 ground balls, although 1 technically a line drive right into and out of Pablo Sandoval's glove. It'll be Belt, Sandoval, and Crawford in that order as we go to the 4th inning. So Brandon making his way up to the plate, 6'5", 220 out of Nacogdoches, Texas, and went to the University of Texas, 5th round pick. Belt's just taking his time, slowly but surely developing into quite a threat. 264 with 9 home runs. Last year he had 17 home runs. Before that he had homered in single figures. 0-1 the count. Belt, as we mentioned, has those strange numbers whereby he has done all of his good hitting on the road. Next pitch is lifted foul. Let's see, it will be Uribe. So Brandon Belt, a towering foul ball, 1 away. And the batter, Pablo Sandoval, who grounded out 2nd inning to Gonzalez at first. Pablo, a colorful character. They just absolutely love him in San Francisco. He's the lovable panda. The name was first put on him. And even down here you'll see the panda hat. Barry Zito put that nickname on him. Pablo from Venezuela. His dad's in management. His mom runs a small company that sells electronics. He takes a big curveball for a strike. Always amazing. You see a ball player like Pablo for Venezuela, kind of a surprise. He has 3 older brothers. One is a police officer. Another is a criminal attorney. The third, like Pablo, a ball player, but was eventually released by Minnesota. Little foul ball. Pablo idolized Omar Vizquel. I'm sure every kid in Venezuela certainly thought about Omar. So naturally, he wanted to be a shortstop. Eventually signed with the Giants. He was only 16 years old. And what is amazing, he's not only a switch hitter, he is indeed ambidextrous. They say he can throw the ball as hard and far left-handed as right. Fly ball down the line, beginning to slice, go foul, back in the stands. Crawford a look and nothing else. Not only did Pablo want to be a shortstop, when he started out in the minors, they taught him to play first base and third base. And anytime he would complain to his mom on the phone, homesick or whatever, and his mother said, "I don't want to hear it. I told you to go to college." So it's pretty tough when you have a couple of brothers in front of you who have gone to college, and then you've decided to be a ball player, and then you call home and complain. Ouch. Talking about ouch, if you look under his left eye, you'll see a scar just above the cheekbone. 1-2 pitch on the way. Hit the wrong way and lines it inside third down the line. That's the Pablo we've known. Finally, Crawford picks it up, and going into second base, standing with a double, Pablo Sandoval. Just to complete the story on that scar, after he scars Beckett, slow curveball outside of the strike zone. He just went across the plate and hit it inside of third base between the bag and Uribe. Anyway, Pablo, just a little kid. They had a dog, a Doberman. He had a plastic bat. The dog annoyed him. He hit the dog with the plastic bat, and the dog bit him high up on that cheekbone. Giants are just waiting for him to come out of his slump. So now a one-out double, and here's Brandon Crawford, who tries to time a slow curveball and lifts it to Matt Kemp. Kemp ready to throw. Sandoval is not ready to run. So 2 down, and Brandon Hicks coming up. So Crawford a little frustrated on that slow curveball. Every time Brandon Hicks plays, and we certainly don't take anything away from him, but the Giants are really missing Marco Scutaro. Last year, Scutaro hit .290. Hicks is hitting less than .200. We'll tell you more about it in a minute. A little meeting at the mound. So Scutaro hit .290, and Brandon Hicks, who is a question mark whether he can hit enough, he came in hitting .198. If you take all the second basemen in the major leagues, next to last in the majors would be whoever's playing second base for the Giants. In the dirt, San Diego is last, hitting .151, and the Giants second baseman collectively .181. Two down, 1 ball and no strikes. Hicks trying to stay. Right-hand batter in the 1-0 pitch. In for a strike. Off speed at 84. Hicks, of course, a little bit like the Vogel song we talked about. I don't think many people thought this fella out of Texas, originally with the Braves, with Scutaro having the job locked up, except Scutaro's back went out on him, and he's been unable to play. 1-1 pitch, 1-2. So Hicks has a chance. As long as Scutaro is not playing, he has a chance to at least play and show his wares. When Scutaro will play, nobody knows. Among other things, Scutaro will be 39 in October. So you be 39 with a bad back trying to stay in the big leagues, chances are against you. 1-2. Slow breaking ball. Scudero, 2 years ago when he was playing for the Giants, all he did against the Dodgers was hit .366. In fact, in one game, in a Giant-Dodger game, Scudero went 6 for 13 in the series, scored 3 in a 3-game series, struck out 4 times in 71 at-bats against the Dodgers. 2-2. So with all that as somewhat common knowledge, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Brandon Hicks. Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Sandoval with a wrong field double, hitting left-handed, hit it inside third. Beckett now trying to put Hicks away. 2-2. Got him. So Hicks strikes out a second time. No runs, 1 hit, a man left. Giants have left 5. And at the end of 3.5 innings, no score. Fourth inning, no score in the ball game. The Giants and the Dodgers. Again, we remind you those 3 one-run games last time they met. Sometimes you expect a big hitting series, and we did not get it then, and we're really not looking for it now. You get Vogelsong on his game against a Beckett who is struggling but getting by, and then tomorrow, Madison Bumgarner and Paul Maholm. Saturday, it will be Matt Cain and Zach Greinke. And then Sunday, Tim Hudson and Clayton Kershaw. It's good to know that Matt Cain is able to pitch. You know, he was making a sandwich before going to the ballpark and proceeded to slice a finger on his pitching hand. So he hadn't pitched since. But we will see him tomorrow. He had that lacerated finger that put him on the DL. But he's smiling, so is Boshi. And we'll see Matt Saturday against Greinke. Here's D. And ball 1. Interesting thing about this year and what's going on. You know, when I started, it was close to 43% of all base stealers were caught. 43%. For some reason or other, either the pitchers were exceptionally good in holding the runners or the catchers were exceptionally good in throwing them out. 43% of all the base runners were caught. You know what could happen this year? Maybe. If it goes the way it is going, 24%. Now, normally, a baseball man would tell you, well, you steal on the pitcher, not on the catcher. That's a foul, 1 and 2. But whether it's the pitcher or the catcher, it has been gone completely the other way in favor of the base stealer. And you say, well, what is the big change? The big change is that we have far better hitters as catchers. Far better. 1-2 the count. So the game has changed, certainly in stolen bases. And people like Billy Hamilton with Cincinnati and D. Gordon, they're liable to run wild. Gordon has stolen 20. The Dodgers have always had a reputation of speed. You have a Gordon, you have a Maury Wills. But actually, the last time the Dodgers led the league in stolen bases, they had 138 stolen bases. That was way back in 1970. Carl Crawford, of course, as a much younger player, Matt Kemp, they were great base stealers. Not so much now. And, of course, the Dodgers had a great one in Davey Lopes. Meanwhile, Gordon hacks and fouls them off. In fact, you know how they take a position and match up all the second basemen and all the shortstops and all that. If you match up the catchers so far, only first basemen and designated hitters are hitting as well as all the catchers. That comes as a shock. 1-2. 2-2. So Vogelsong, who's retired 9 in a row. He has Gordon at the plate and Puig on deck. No score in the fourth. Gordon has walked only a half a dozen times. 2-2. And a little flare, backhanded by Crawford on the dead run. Running behind Sandoval. So in the first inning, Gordon hit a line drive in and out of Sandoval's glove, who then threw him out. This time a little flare hit off the hands, and a nice play by Brandon Crawford. So here comes Yasiel Puig. Puig hit a line drive that looked like it was certainly going to be a base hit. And big Brandon Belt at 6'5", fully extended, was able to spear the ball on its way to right field. Yasiel, with a 7-game streak, was robbed, as they used to say. And a strike. That's the spot twice now. Once was called a strike, once was called a ball. And Puig is not quite sure exactly about Paul Schreiber's strike zone. 0-1. Big breaking ball. 1-1 to count. Ryan Vogelsong, we mentioned earlier, he has been inspirational. He had a tremendous postseason in 2012, going 3-0 and an earned run average of 1. But he had some tough times. Eventually went to Japan for 3 years with his young bride. That's ball 2. And you can just imagine he and his bride Nicole would be watching games in the major leagues on television, and every now and then, once in a while, a major leaguer who had played in Japan would come up to bat or pitch, and Ryan would turn to his wife and say, "You see, honey, you see, there are guys who get back." And for 3 years, he scratched and clawed and eventually came back. Fastball fouled away. Good fastball at 92. 2-2 to Yasiel. And actually, the Giants got great dividends after choosing Vogelsong in the 5th round. They traded him to the Pirates. And you know who they got in exchange? Jason Schmidt, who was an ace of the Giants staff right after 2001. 2-2. Ball 3. Everything down, basically everything away. Waiting on deck is Hanley. 4th inning, no score. Yasiel at 6'2", anywhere around 235. He is a big man. Hard ground ball. Bad hopping on out into left field. Almost took a little bit of Crawford with it. The Puig, a bullet to shortstop, too hot to handle. And the Dodgers get their first hit after 10 in a row had been retired. So Puig just blistered that ground ball. Crawford had to take a tricky hop before it got to him, and that really threw him out of sync. He tried to play it sideways, ole, as they would say, like a matador. No sense getting in front of that thing. So Puig at first with 1 out. Hanley Ramirez the batter. Puig has stolen 4 out of 6. And ball 1. One of the things we had a note about on Vogelsong, but that's back in 2012 with the Giants that year, he was 14-9, was that he seemed to tie in the 5th inning. In fact, last year he allowed about 40% of his runs in the 5th inning. Well, here we are in the 4th. One and one. Hanley takes a look at Lorenzo Bundy. Puig, meanwhile, held on by Brandon Belt. Posey checking. 1-1. Puig leaning but not going. 2-1. Well, you could play hit and run if you wanted to. You have a free swinger in Hanley Ramirez, and of course you have great speed. Ramirez has paid the price. He has struck out 26 times, so we'll see if that means they will hold Puig or will they turn him loose. 2-1. Puig bluffs, and it's fouled away. No play for Belt. That's going to go way back. 2-2 the count to Hanley Ramirez. Adrian Gonzalez waiting on deck. Look at that little tyke with the polka dots in the box seat. Wow. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 1 out. Puig at first. Whether it's a tip-off or not, Puig leans and also swings one arm, almost like the propeller of a plane. See if he does it every time. Wait till he straightens up out of the crouch. See the left hand covered with the sleeve that they use to protect hand injuries. There you go. Fakes just off the plate. So he didn't go 2-1. Now 3-2, 1 out. One other thought you might consider, and that is Ramirez hitting into double plays. He has grounded into 4. So with all of that knowledge, what do you think? No score, they're going to run Puig? We'll see in a moment. No score, 4th inning. Yep, there he goes. Cracked bat, ground ball. They don't have a play at second. So Puig hustling beats a possible force play, and that's a huge play. Ramirez cracked his bat. He didn't hit the ball hard enough to have any push on it, and Crawford, fielding the ball, looked up, and there was Puig already on the bag. So Brandon straightened up and fired to first. So it's one of those rare times on a ground ball to short, the runner is not forced. So Ramirez grounds out. could be a big break in what could turn out to be a very low-scoring game. Now again, they put Brandon Hicks 20 feet out into right field. Crawford serves two purposes: to fill up the middle and hold the runner, and a shot up the middle smothered by Crawford. Location, location, location. It's important in real estate, and it's just as important in baseball. No runs, a hit, a man left. Worth another play. Crawford taking a sure hit and a run away from the Dodgers, and at the end of 4, no score. The #1 live streaming sports service, celebrating 12 years. So join the millions of subscribers. Watch every out-of-market game live in true HD on over 400 devices. Visit Dodgers.com for details. Beckett ready, and here we go. And ball 1. Vogelsong, by the way, finally had to work a bit. 20 pitches in the 4th inning. Beckett would certainly like to cut his down. And there's a drive over the head of Crawford. He's going to have to go back to the wall, play the count. On his way into second base, and streaming in with the long double is Ryan Vogelsong. So Vogelsong doubles over the head of Crawford. And just like that, the second double for the Giants, their 3rd hit in the game, and yet we are scoreless. But now with Vogelsong aboard, Pagan, Pence, and Posey trying to pick him up. So a runner at second. Pagan flied to right, grounded to short. Angel, a heck of a player. He means a great deal to the Giants. Backs off on a strike. 0-1 the count. When Pagan was out with the serious hamstring pull, the Giants were just not the same team. Not at all. Of course, he's done a lot of things. How about this? You know, he became the first player in 55 years to take part in a triple play and hit an inside the park home run in the same game. Pulled, one hopper backhanded by Adrian. He has to hurry. Goes to the bag, and Vogelsong stays at second base. So Pagan hits it hard, loses a base hit, fails to advance his runner. Not his fault. And on that shot, Vogelsong hesitated. He could have easily gone to third, because if you looked at that play closely, you saw that Gonzalez, being left-handed, had to turn his back as he fielded the ball. though he could not have made a play at third base. But then again, you have a pitcher running, and they're not really that accustomed to running. And a strike to Pence. Giants have not been retired in order. They've had at least one man on base in every inning, but so far no score in the fifth. 0-1. Pulled hard at third. Uribe makes the play. So 2 down. Nice play by Juan. And here comes the man who is such a good hitter with men on base, Buster Posey. Posey has walked, and remember, in the third inning with Pence at first, he had a fly ball that sent Matt Kemp to the center field wall. Off speed, ground ball to third. Uribe makes the play. So a leadoff double, big play that Pagan was unable to advance him, even though Vogelsong should have gone over. And we're heading to the bottom of the fifth, no score. The fifth inning, no score in the ball game for the Giants. They have to be somewhat frustrated. They've had at least one man on base in every inning. They've left all 6, and of course never more so than when Vogelsong doubled and did not come over on the ground ball that had Adrian Gonzalez turn his back in order to field the ball on the line. And then 2 more ground balls, and they left him. So the Dodgers now will have Matt Kemp, followed by Carl Crawford, and then Uribe trying to get on the board. The other plus for the Dodgers is Josh Beckett. In last inning, he got just what the doctor ordered. He got the outs on 7 pitches. However, his pitch count is still up to 76. So here comes Matt, grounded to third, 0 for 1, hitting .248. Kemp, Crawford, Uribe. The Dodgers have 1 hit. That hard ground ball that handcuffed Brandon Crawford at shortstop. I see a ground ball hit as hard as that was, and I shudder to remember when they played on AstroTurf. Oh. And ball 1. It'll be interesting for 2 reasons. Remember that note we mentioned a minute ago about Vogelsong's problems starting in the 5th inning. He is coming off a 20-pitch inning in the fourth. Plus, of course, he ran the bases when he doubled in the fifth. So let's see. And that's flared to right. Coming up is Pence. Base hit. So Kemp, flare single to right field. Hit number 2 for the Dodgers. And the batter now will be Carl Crawford, who struck out in the second inning. Matt got a fastball, tried to stay inside out, was actually a little late, and flared it to right. Kemp, yeah, you saw him wringing that right hand. That hurt. Hunter Pence did the same thing on a foul ball that he hit. And a strike. 0-1. Crawford taking a long look at Lorenzo Bundy. Oh, 0-1. Breaking ball misses. Kemp checking to see if there are any play called on a 1-1 count. By the way, we talked about the running game earlier. Fouled away. And we were talking about how the base stealers are getting away with murder. Catchers are not throwing them out. D. Gordon leads. Even though Buster Posey is so highly rated, the Giants have allowed 30 stolen bases already. And to be honest, in the previous games, 6 games, we did not see Posey, I think, make a good throw, an arrow-like throw, only once. 2-2. I can remember mentally seeing Posey, and the majority of his throws down to second base were on a bounce. Now maybe it serves him well, but nevertheless, 30 stolen bases allowed. The old world would say, yeah, they're running on the pitchers, but I'm not quite sure looking at the numbers now. Throw to first, not in time. Good play by Posey. Great play. The best way to do it, too, he had a left-hand hitter, though he had a screen up. Kemp loses sight for a moment, almost gets it, just did get back. I think Belt missed the first swipe. There's the catch, up he goes, and he misses there. Then he comes down on the shoulders too late. All right, 3-2. We'll see if Kemp's going to go. Crawford looking fastball in this spot for sure. Kemp goes, and the pitch is ball 4, and that settles the issue. So maybe it's just a coincidence, but we were talking about the 5th inning and Vogelsong and running the bases, and now all of a sudden the first serious threat. First and second, nobody out, and Juan Uribe coming up. Uribe grounded wide at first. Brandon Belt plays as far off the line, almost as far as Paul Goldschmidt. You'd really have to get a ruler to figure out who's farther away, but Belt will certainly serve a purpose. Uribe 0 for 1. Fastball and a fly ball to right. It's playable. The run is tagged. Pence with a very good arm. Kemp will go over to third. Holding at first is Crawford, and 1 out.
Catcher number 31, Drew Butera.
Now it's up to Drew Butera or Josh Beckett to get the Dodgers on the board. First and third, 1 out. Dodgers didn't have much of a chance to leave runners because Vogelsong retired 9 in a row. Then they left Puig in the 4th inning, and they have 2 men aboard here in the 5th. Butera grounded to Belt in the 3rd inning. So Drew 0 for 1. Butera from Evansville, Indiana. You remember his dad. He was a big league catcher, Sal Butera. Drew will be 31 years old in August. So it's a big at-bat for him here. First and third, one out, no score, bottom of the fifth. Crawford drawing a throw, and pretty good throw it was. Crawford and Kemp at the corners. Have a little speed out there. Full swing, fly ball to right center. That should be plenty deep for Kemp. He tags and scores. Pagan gets it back towards second base, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. Big at bat for Drew Butera. Well, that's Max Kemp coming in, and of course Butera wearing number 31. A reminder of Mike Piazza and how many clutch RBIs Mike had. So Butera lives up to the number, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. And the batter is Beckett, who flied to right in the third inning. Little roller, backhanded by Vogelsong. That'll be that. However, the Dodgers squeeze out a run, a walk, a base hit, and a scoring fly ball. And at the end of 5, 1-0 Dodgers. In 1981, Fernando Mania was at its peak, and Fernando lived up to it. He went to the mound at Shea Stadium in New York before about 38,000 people, and he beat the Mets 1-0. The only run was knocked in, a base hit by Dusty Baker to drive in Kenny Landreau, and Fernando made it stand up. He also struck out 11, and to give you an idea how incredible he was, when he won 1-0, his earned run average was 0.29. No wonder he was the only first-timer, a rookie, to win Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young Award the same season. Wow. And with that, let's go back to this one. Ah, yes, there he is, Fernando Valenzuela. Never be forgotten, that's for sure. And here's Michael Morse, off speed for a strike, and the count 0-1 to Michael. He has hit as many as 31 home runs. That's just what the Giants need, power in left field, and they've gotten it. Foul back. Michael lives in Fort Lauderdale, moved to Plantation but he was born in Jamaica. He is Jamaican, as is his mom. So when he played his first game in the major leagues, that would be back in 2005, he was the first native of Jamaica to play in the big leagues. He had 31 home runs. That's his peak. 2011 when he played with the Washington Nationals. Another big fella. He's 6'5", 230, and pops it up to Adrian. One out in the sixth inning. Beckett leading 1-0. Appears to have settled down as far as his control is concerned. Walked 2 in the first inning and made 22 pitches. Walked 1 in the second inning and made 20 pitches. But now 13, 15, 7, 4. And ball 1 to Brandon Belt. Struck out, fouled out. Tough hitter anytime, but especially on the road. Foul ball. Butera coming back. No chance. 1-1. It's always been a great mystery how catchers can ever find a foul ball. Part of it might be hearing, but they have the back to where the ball is. Somehow they spin out, run around behind without colliding into the plate umpire, and all of a sudden they're underneath it. You wonder, how can they be that accurate? Ask Buster Posey, ask Drew Butera, ask anybody who put on the gear. The so-called but ill-named tools of ignorance. Anything but. 1-2. Ground ball hard. Still 1-2. Belt followed by Sandoval. Just did hold up. 2-2. Born in Nacogdoches, Texas, interestingly enough, in a house that his father built. Now, his father's not a carpenter. His father is a geometry teacher, and his mom is a hairdresser. Boy, good to his dad. He built the house. 3-2. When Belt was in high school, they thought he was going to be a tremendous pitcher. 3-2. Belt was a big man on campus 5 years ago. He helped Texas to the College World Series. A mile-high pop fly. It'll be Ramirez. Two out here in the sixth inning, and Pablo Sandoval coming up. 5 in a row retired by Josh after that double by Vogelsong. And here's Pablo. Sandoval is so much better than a 179 hitter. Pulled a one hopper. D. Gordon stays with it. End of that story. 6 in a row retired by Josh Beckett as he walks off at the end of 5.5 innings. 1-0 in favor of the Dodgers. Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Jack in the Box. Head to Jack in the Box and try the new Jack's Blazing Chicken Sandwich. It's Jack's hottest sandwich yet. And by the Ram 1500, Motor Trend's 2014 Truck of the Year and first ever back-to-back champion. Bottom of the 6th inning, Dodgers leading 1-0. It'll be D. Gordon followed by Yasiel Puig and then Hanley Ramirez against Ryan Vogelsong. This may or may not be Vogelsong's last inning. He's due to bat third when the Giants hit in the 7th. And here's D. Gordon. Line drive out of the glove of Sandoval, who threw him out, and he popped a short in the 4th inning. Line drive foul. Gordon hitting a solid .336. That line drive he hit in the 1st inning could easily have gone for a double. Oh, 0-1. Shows bunt. They call them splits. In other words, you'll take a player like Gordon and say, how does he hit against left-handers? How does he hit against right-handers? Against right-handers, he's hitting .379. And with their backs to him, when he's on base, he has stolen 18 of 21. Ball 2. Against left-handers, D is hitting .192. They're looking at him, but he's 2 for 2 stolen bases. 2-1. Gordon, Puig, Ramirez. Little ground ball, foul ball, foul ball. So we heard about it in spring training. Well, I've gained 13 pounds from last year, and people say, well, that's nice. But apparently it has really helped him. Of course, admittedly, we have a long way to go to the end of the year. But he's played every inning. What a brutal road trip the Dodgers had. I think every team experiences one road trip that is a killer. And that's going to be by the diving Crawford. So Gordon's presence at first, that'll wake things up a little bit. So D 1 for 3, could easily be 2 for 3. Kind of a sheepish grin. He rounded first and then had to dive back to the bag. But a nice bit of hitting. Again, just staying inside the ball and going the other way. Crawford giving a big shot, and then all of a sudden D slipped. And there wasn't a play, and that's why when he got up, he had that sheepish look on his face. All right, for Vogelsong now, he has tough problems. He is indeed on the horns of the so-called dilemma. One horn is at the plate, Mr. Puig, and the other is Gordon at first. This is truly the art of major league pitching. Yasiel in a tough role now, hitting behind Gordon. Does he have to be patient and take a strike? Asking Puig to be patient, I'm sure, is a major obligation. It's important, too, if Gordon can get to second base, because Puig, with runners in scoring position this year, is hitting .405. Last year as a rookie, Yasiel hit only .234, so he has matured, especially in those very tough spots. But Gordon is not in scoring position yet. 1 ball and no strikes. Interesting a pitch count. I was just looking at the book. In the 5th inning, Ryan Vogelsong made only 11 pitches. He made 9 pitches and got 3 outs in the 1st inning. He made 11 pitches in the 5th inning, and he had to face 5 different hitters. There he goes. Pitch is low. No, didn't even throw. Yeah, that's it. Believe me, those numbers I gave you, I hope you didn't think it was boring. But they're going to run wild this year. He got a good jump, and Posey looks and says, I don't have a play. So if only 24% of the base runners are going to be thrown out this year, it's a whole new game. And now, of course, Puig has what he wants. He has a runner in scoring position. 31 stolen bases against the Giants. 31. Big slow curveball. Vogelsong has certainly kept his pitch count down, only 72. Two and one. Big breaking ball. 3-1. Vogelsong, as we mentioned earlier, has always been an inspiration. And he's had so many different physical problems, arm problems. Finally, had to have Tommy John surgery. Then he was hit with Bell's palsy. That's a virus that paralyzed the left side of his face. Then he hurt his back lifting weights. Then he broke his throwing hand trying to foul off a pitch, and it hit him on the hand. It broke 2 bones on the knuckle and the little pinky. Big slow curve. 3-2. Out there, down there. Yasiel annoyed at himself for chasing that pitch. Three and two. Pick off. Gordon back in there. Not much a third base coach can do about a pickoff play at second. I mean, the crowd is here roaring. The runner is pretty far away from Lorenzo. I mean, he can holler, look out, but I don't know if the voice would carry. Fastball. I always get a kick. Major league hitters are so confident of their ability. And Yasiel fouled that 3-2 fastball back. And to me, his body language said, boy, were you lucky that I didn't hit that thing. 3-2. Oh, that's a long time. The patience of Job would be exercised there. One thing Crawford is too, he's a man in motion out there. He's trying to take a step away at least from Gordon. They're not worrying about Gordon stealing third because Sandoval is playing near the bag. He's just trying to take a step away from him in case he's trying to come home. And for Puig, he lays off a bad breaking ball. Another sign of the maturity. Yes, that deserves a round of applause from Mattingly. I mean, last year, he would have lost his cap, unbuttoned his shirt, and broken one of his shoes. But this time, he takes ball 4. So 2 on, nobody out, bottom of the 6th. 1-0 Dodgers. Giants could kick themselves. They left 6 men on in the first 5 innings. Hanley Ramirez grounded to short twice. Second time, Crawford took a base hit away from him, going behind and across the bag and smothering to get him. First ball swinging, lifting a fly ball, so Gordon holds his hand up. Pence has a great arm, but not that kind of an arm. So Gordon easily goes to third. He does hold Puig, but if nothing else, Hanley moved his man over to third base. Adrian Gonzalez came up in the 4th inning and lost a short base hit and a run batted in. Wonderful play by Brandon Crawford, who appears to be everywhere tonight. So because of that, Gonzalez 0 for 2 coming up. So a long fly ball that put Pence on the warning track, and Gordon is now third. Puig holding at first. Gonzalez first time up, they had that big shift on where Uribe, well, not Uribe, it was Sandoval who was in the hole at shortstop, and it was a big off-speed pitch away, and Gonzalez thought, good, I'll hit it the other way, just as he tries this time a one-hopper to Crawford, and he gets the double play. So Brandon Crawford, omnipresent everywhere you look, there he is. Dodgers blow a chance for a run, and at the end of 6, lead 1-0. Lead as we go to the 7th inning. We can look ahead to the Dodger calendar. 3 big games with the Giants. It will be Madison Bumgarner and Paul Maholm tomorrow night. Matt Cain and Zach Greinke Saturday at 1. Tim Hudson and Clayton Kershaw Sunday at 1. And then the Marlins come in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Following that, the 15th is an off day, and the Dodgers begin another road trip. Arizona, New York, and Philadelphia. Josh Beckett has negotiated his way through 6. After a wobbly first 2 innings, he has really settled down. Remember, September the 30th, 2012, the last time he won a game. Fastball pull foul. It almost got a little bit of Will Little. A little bit of Will. 0-1. So Brandon Crawford having a brilliant defensive game. He has walked and fly deep to center in the 4th inning. 0 for 1. Outfield a little split. There's a beach ball out in the outfield. I'll have to get that. Matt Kemp shading him a little bit towards left center. However, Puig plays him straight away in right. So that's a vast bit of pasture out there from center to right. 0-1 to Brandon. One and one. Josh Beckett, when you think of the ordeal he went through this winter, the thoracic outlet syndrome, where they actually had to remove an upper rib that was compressing a nerve. Living through that, getting back into tip-top shape, and pitching very well. Ball 2, 2-1. I think because of the compression on the nerve, Beckett couldn't really feel the ball last year. Brought back memories of Sandy Koufax. He had Raynaud's phenomenon. And Sandy's left index finger and the middle finger were ice cold in 90-degree weather. Those two fingers like they had been in the icebox. 2-2. And ball 3. Beckett walked 2 in the first inning, walked Crawford in the second inning, found his control, and now going all the way to Crawford here in the 7th. So down goes Crawford. 1 out in the 7th inning. Beckett struck out Belt with 2 on. Struck out Hicks twice with at least a man aboard. So now he gets a strikeout with the bases empty. Hicks 0 for 2 with the strikeouts, hitting .193. Big curveball. 1 ball, no strikes. Beckett now getting up to 100 pitches. And a drive to left. That might carry all the way. It is gone. Brandon Hicks, who had struck out twice, hitting less than 200, hits one, and it's his 6th home run of the year. And we have a 1-1 tie. You know, I had forgotten this story a long time ago, and then I remembered. And it's perfect when a fella hits a home run. One of our favorite players with the Dodgers many years ago, Rocky Bridges, was a coach at El Paso. And Rocky always had a big chew of tobacco in his mouth. I mean, his cheek was filled. And he was the third base coach, and a fellow like Brandon Hicks hits a home run. And as he rounds third, he reaches to shake our man's hand. Uribe makes the play. 2 down. Only the home run hitter doesn't realize that Rocky Bridges took the big wad of tobacco and put it in his hand. So now, as the runner comes around third, Rocky shakes his hand and slaps a big plug of wet tobacco in the home run hitter's hand. What does he do? He carries it, and the guy at home plate, the unsuspecting next hitter, shakes his hand. He slaps the tobacco into his hand. That had to be one of the more memorable home runs. Tobacco Row. Oh, my. 1-1, 7th inning, 2 out. Chris Withrow gets up now. Beckett, 100 pitches. Home run coming out of nowhere. 2 out, 7th inning. A ball loose, picked up and retrieved by Crawford. One run, 4 hits for the Giants. 1 run, 3 hits for the Dodgers. And we're in the 7th. Time. Pagan flied to right, grounded to short, grounded to first. That's when he felt he had a shot as Hicks cools off, having just hit the home run. Pagan thought the way the ball was hit, Gonzalez had to backhand the ball, which meant he actually turned his back to the infield to get the ball. But Vogelsong stayed as a spectator at second base. That's a strike. 2-1. We were talking about ball players and splits. You can talk about the Giants. In the daytime, they are 10-3, 6-1 on the road. But when Bruce's boys play at night, they're 11-10. Posey and company trying to work that out. 2-1. Ball 3. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 7th, Kemp, Crawford, Uribe. Oh, Pagan is still there. 3-2. Waiting. Hunter Pence restless on deck. Well, he's still up there hacking. 3-2. Pagan did a nice thing. A lot of fathers would have done the same thing. A couple of years ago, he wanted to support his 6-year-old daughter who had been chosen to sing the Puerto Rican national anthem. And he was rehabbing an oblique injury in Florida. And what he did was he drove 3 hours from Tampa to the Mets spring training complex in Port St. Lucie. That's one of the worst drives in the whole world. You travel US 60 from Tampa to the East Coast. Holy mackerel. But anyway, for 3 hours, he drove over, caught the flight, and flew to Puerto Rico, watched his daughter sing, returned to Florida in time for a 10:30 a.m. game the following day. Good for you, Angel. No wonder they called you Angel. And he also gets himself at least a single. In fact, it's going to be a double. So Pagan, a slice double to left. The batter will be Hunter Pence. Pence 1 for 3. Pitch is down. He just sliced it away, and it carries. So a little flare double down the line. Tie-breaking run at second base with 2 out in an inning that saw the home run from Brandon Hicks tie up the game. And let's see now. That's a slow walk to the mound. 107 pitches. And it looks like they're going to go to Chris Withrow. They are indeed. So we have a 1-1 tie, 2 out. Pagan at second base. A nice round of applause for Josh Beckett, who still has not won a game. He's going to go out tied where he could actually lose, depending upon Pagan. And we'll be right back. Josh Beckett being consoled by teammate Scott Van Slyke. He gave it quite an effort tonight. 107 pitches. I think what shocked him the most was the home run hit by Brandon Hicks as Dan Herron comes over to say nice job. So now it's up to Chris Rithrow to keep Pagan away from scoring and to keep Beckett away from a possible loss. So it's bad enough not getting a win in 14 starts, but at least he's had 4 no decisions. And Withrow is going to try and keep it that way as he faces Hunter Pence. Looks like we might have another one-run game, and if so, these two teams are really something in one-run games, if we get that far. That's a strike. The Giants have already played 17 one-run games. They've only played 34 games, so half of their games have been decided by one run, and they are 9-8. The Dodgers have been in 11 one-run games, and they're 4-7. Fastball in the dirt. Nice block by Butera. Pagan at second base has stolen 6 out of 8. And with Pence up there, Uribe very deep. D. Gordon is trying to take a step away and hold Pagan aboard. Hunter Pence began a trend. He is a trend setter, and he began to trend among Giant players on riding motorized scooters to the park instead of driving. The scooters are decorated by the Giants' chef. And he slaps it to right. Here comes Puig and makes the catch. So a huge out. So for Beckett, small consolation, I'm sure, but nevertheless, no loss. 14 starts without a win, but you're okay, and it's a 1-1 tie. Giants Dodgers all locked in 1-1. Bottom of the 7th inning. Giants getting tied thanks to Brandon Hicks. This is interesting. Hicks hit a home run in the 7th inning. He's now just 4 for 31 in the 7th inning or later but 3 of those 4 hits have been home runs, including a walk-off home run. Well, his home run tonight got the Giants even. 1-1, 7th inning. Matt Kemp, Carl Crawford, Juan Uribe. 1 ball and no strikes. Ryan Vogelsong still in there. Foul back. He was throwing 92. That looked like he was trying to throw a good hard fastball, and it dropped a little in velocity to 89. So we'll keep an eye on that. One ball and 1 strike. We were talking earlier about Vogelsong last year seemingly to tire in the 5th inning. Fouled away. This year, after the 6th inning, he has only faced 5 batters this year. So this will be a test for him. 7th inning, 1-1. Gene Machi begins to loosen up, barrel-chested right-hander down in the Giant pen. And Jeremy Affeldt, the veteran left-hander. Off speed. 3-2 to Matt. There they are. Vogelsong will be 37 in July. So he made a lot of pitches in his life. 3-2. That looked like it was going to be ball 4 to everybody but Matt. Yeah, he is furious. 1 away. Say, don't forget Sunday at 1:10, Dodgers and Giants, and the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Mother's Day clutch. Compliments of Mother's Cookies. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions today. So Matt Kemp can't hold back on a high inside fastball and strikes out. Vogelsong is not a strikeout pitcher. That's only the 2nd strikeout. The other one was Carl Crawford. Matt's hot. 1 ball, 1 strike. All agreed it is a maddening game. Line drive, base hit. So it might have been a walk followed by a base hit. Instead, 1 out followed by a base hit. And Juan Uribe coming up. Pretty good pitch to hit, and Call went right after it. Crawford used to be a great base stealer, tremendous speed and all of that. This year he has stolen 4 out of 6. We told you that base stealers have run rampant against the Giants. When Gordon stole 31 stolen bases against San Francisco, and when Gordon stole, just to add to it, Posey didn't even bother throwing. So we'll see if they turn him loose. 2 guys who certainly know about throwing, and that would be D. Gordon and Shane in conversation. One and 0. Fastball hit slowly to short. Here's Crawford. They get 1, and they're going to get 2. So Uribe goes 0 for 3 tonight. Dodgers have a bad inning, parting with a a walk instead of strikeout, and we're heading to the 8th. But it's Brandon Crawford's night with the glove. He's everywhere in a 1-1 tie. On Sportsnet LA is driven by your Southern California Mazda dealer. A 1-1 tie as we go to the 8th inning. Chris Withrow getting ready to face Posey, Morse, and Belt. The bullpens were busy. Had brought in Withrow. The Giant pen was busy with Machi and Affeldt, but neither came in. And thank goodness you are here, sunshine. Oh, every move, sheer poetry. Bless your heart. Yeah, that's great. You got it. Oh, the footwork. Artistry. Thank you very much for the intermission. Hooray. Thank you. And into the 8th, 1-1 with Buster Posey. 0-1. Posey walked, sent Kemp to the wall for a long fly ball in the 3rd inning, grounded out last time up. No balls, 1 strike. One and one. Buster, who reminds you a little bit of Jeff Bagwell, as if he's almost sitting in an imaginary chair. The one big difference, Posey drops the head of the bat, so it's almost facing the ground. There she goes. Two and two the count to Buster, facing Chris Withrow. Withrow in his 16th game, works about an inning an appearance. His earned run average coming in a half a run. And 3-2. Boy, that thing really came up there in a hurry at 97. Waiting on deck, Michael Morse. Interesting game tonight, especially at the start. Beckett trying to win a game for the first time since September of 2012. Vogelsong trying to make it back-to-back wins since September of 2012. And now the Giants get their 4th walk as Posey opens up the 8th.
Michael Morse.
Morse, Belt, and Sandoval now trying to move him around. One of the things that Vogelsong has done very well tonight, he has gotten the Dodgers to hit into 13 ground balls. And the last one was a double play off the bat of Juan Uribe. Honeycutt made a call to the pen. Left-hander J.P. Howell on a fastball almost hit Morse. 1 ball and no strikes. Morse walked, grounded to first, popped up to first. 0 for 2. Fastball away, hitting 96 on the gun. 2-0 to Michael Morse, a young man from Jamaica. His mom, they tell us, was a great athlete, playing tennis, running track, and taught him how to play baseball. 2-1. And hit late and foul way down the line. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. Posey at first. And another ball foul down the line. Still 2-2. When Michael Morse was with Washington, he had kind of a amazing bit of warming up before he would swing. They got to calling it the Samurai Cobra Snake warm-up. It had to do with getting his hips loosened up. Then he would lift his left foot, putting all the power onto the back leg, and then transferring the weight as he would swing down on the ball as if he was chopping with an axe. But we haven't seen him do anything like that since he has come over to the Giants. 2-2. And another foul ball. Michael Morse certainly looks big enough to play football, and he works out with a fine football player from the San Francisco 49ers, their running back Frank Gore. In fact, Morse was a quarterback in high school. It was not a very good team. It failed to score a point, and it never crossed the 50-yard line until the final game. And down he goes. So Morse, after fouling off several, caught looking at a strike, 1 away. Josh Beckett had 4 strikeouts. Withrow picks up 1. And now Brandon Belt struck out, fouled out, popped up. And ball 1. We were talking earlier about the fact that Belt has 9 home runs, 8 of them hit on the road. Another thing, He's only hitting .241 against right-handers, but 7 of his 9 home runs have been hit against right-handers. Hitting .311 against left-handers with only 2 home runs. 1-1 to Brandon. One, top of the 8th inning. One and two. As Withrow is deep in thought, another note about Brandon Belt. He married his high school sweetheart. The groom's cake was 3 tiers of chocolate with a Giants cap on top and alternating Longhorns and Giants logos on the side. Now, there's a wedding cake. Wow. 1-2. Still 1-2. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of this 8th inning, they'll have Butera, the catcher, then Withrow's spot, followed by D. Gordon. Meanwhile, Vogelsong has done a great job in a 1-1 tie. 13 ground balls. One fastball after another. He's sitting at 96. Belt's big enough to handle him. 6'5", 220. Throws him a breaking ball, but it's not close. 2-2. One out, 8th inning. Buster Posey at first. 1-1 tie. Got him. So Belt strikes out a second time, goes 0 for 4. That was a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that nailed him. And now here's the always dangerous Pablo Sandoval, no matter how low his batting average might be. Two out. Sandoval hitting left-handed. And there is Adrian Gonzalez holding the corner on Posey. So it makes you look up and see, well, is Posey that much of a stolen base threat? There he goes. The pitch is low. The throw is right there to get him. So Butera nails Posey on a perfect throw. That leaves Sandoval at the plate. And we're heading to the bottom of the 8th inning in a 1-1 tie. Kind of a late tag on one foot, and the extended tag hit the bag. At 1:10, the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Dodger Stadium themed pennant. And after the game with the Giants, you can enjoy the Dodgers Old Timers game featuring former Dodger players from the past 6 decades, all presented by Security Benefit. For tickets and more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Ah, yes. Thank heavens for little girls. They come in all sizes and shapes. Mom's holding on. Meanwhile, Buster Posey thrown out trying to steal. And we never did conclude the thought because he tried to steal. He did steal 2 bases last year, 1 the year before that. Meanwhile, Drew Butera, and even though Ethier put on a helmet and took a bat out of the rack, Sean Figgins is out on deck. So not Ethier, Figgins. So Sean getting ready. Vogelsong has only made 90 pitches. 0-2 the count to Butera, who grounded out and then had the fly ball to center deep enough to get Kemp to third, but the Dodgers couldn't get him home. In the Dodger pen, Kenley Jansen getting ready for the 9th. 1-2. One run, 5 hits for the Giants. 1 run, 4 hits for the Dodgers. Exactly the way they were playing each other when we were last at AT&T Park. Pop foul. Posey over, but no chance. Still 1-2. Yeah, you remember those 3 games at AT&T Park. 3-2 and 12. 2-1 and 2-1. In fact, in the 2 3-game series between the 2 teams, the Giants win the first 2 and the Dodgers come back to win the third, which is why the Giants have a 4-2 edge. Tonight, 1-1 in the 8th. Two and two. In the early going, the Giants left 6 men in the first 5 innings. The Dodgers, starting in the middle 3, have now left 5. 2-2. Posey trying to make Vogelsong keep that ball down. Buster with that glove barely off the ground. Only the 4th inning did he really have to make 20 pitches. And as we said, 13 ground balls. 3-2. And a fly ball. It's playable. Morse, the other end of it, 1 down. And the batter now will be Sean Figgins and not Andre Ethier. We were looking in the dugout. We saw Ethier get a helmet and a bat, but it's Figgins. Sean Figgins batting 100. Ethier back with the hood on. One thing for Figgins, and that's why he's up there, he has 5 walks. Doesn't give you a lot of a strike zone. He's 5'8", standing erect. Sean, 36 years old. He's been playing professionally since 1997. 1-1. Pretty well built, 175, 180. Lifts weights. Hard worker. From Leary, Georgia. 1 ball, 1 strike. Thinking about bunting. 2-1. His full name, Desmond Deshawn Figgins. Came up to the Angels back in 2002. Sandoval plays him on the grass, and that's ball 3. Waiting on deck, D. Gordon. And then, if the inning continues, Yasiel Puig. And a strike. Three and two, 1 out, 8th inning, 1-1. 3-2. See Vogelsong heaving a big sigh after 102 pitches. Pull foul into the seats. The paid attendance tonight, 43,068. 43,068. Dodgers are averaging 46,500 a game, and with 43 tonight, that gets him over 700,000. Kenley is ready apparently. And a little flare for a base hit. So Figgins flares one for a base hit. He has not been involved in a stolen base. And now, after going over 100 pitches and giving up that flare single, Bruce Bochy decides that Ryan Vogelsong should call it a night. So a 1-out single left. They'll be going to the bullpen. Vogelsong pitched a great game, and we'll be right back. going back in his book to 2011, his career high against the Dodgers that game. He made 118 pitches and lost 3-0. So tonight he goes out in a 1-1 tie, and the veteran Jeremy Affeldt will now come on to see if he can bail him out. And you have the interesting concept. You have speed at the plate, but you also have speed at first. And then you have the power of Puig. So we'll see now about Affeldt. Among other things, being left-handed, he has a good eye on Figgins. And number two, we mentioned it earlier, that D. Gordon, who's hitting .379 against right-handers, is hitting .192 against left. So you wonder, will they have him bunt? Instead, they'll try to take a step away from Figgins. Jeremy Affeldt going head-to-head with D. Gordon. And Figgins a tiebreaker at first. Sandoval in on the grass. Affeldt's dad was a bombardier in the Air Force. He flew B-52s. When he retired, he became a 9/11 operator. Big slow pitch up. Gordon tonight robbed of a hit, line drive into and out of Sandoval's glove, who threw him out. Popped up in the fourth inning, singled in the sixth. Affeldt is an author. He's actually written 2 books. Full swing like a bunt. Affeldt's going to make the play, but down to second is Figgins. However, the Dodgers give up a precious out to get a man into scoring position. And now it'll be Yasiel Puig.
Number 66, Yasiel Puig.
And now here comes Bruce Bochy. Now he's had Machi in the pen. He's had Blanco, another left-hand outfielder, so it looks like a double switch. Michael Morse will probably be coming out of the game. The new pitcher will go in Morse's spot, and that way Blanco bats ninth. So Affeldt got one, and we'll be right back. Blanco takes over in left field for Michael Morse. He will bat ninth, so that he would be due up fourth in the ninth inning. And Santiago Casilla will go into Morse's spot. Hard-throwing right-hander. He's from the same town as Juan Uribe. In fact, Uribe is a year older And Santiago remembers once going to Uribe's house as a child, asking him for baseball socks, which Uribe gave him. His first glove, homemade, thick cardboard, into which he cut 3 holes for his ring, middle, and index fingers. Got his first real glove by the late Giant shortstop Jose Uribe, who was Juan's uncle. So you have a tiebreaker in Sean Figgins at second, 2 out, and Yasiel Puig 1 for 2. Line drive robbed by Belt, singled off the glove of Crawford, hard, and walked. 0-1. Figgins can afford to take a pretty good lead. Neither Hicks nor Crawford near to him. 0-1. Casilla is the 7th of 12 children. He has a much younger brother who is a relief pitcher in the Giant farm system. Casilla, no record, earned run average 0.9. And that dropped in there. Puig acting like it was a bad call. Really, he was wrong. 0-2. Fastball, half swing, checking at first. No swing, says Will Little. One ball and 2 strikes. 1-1 tie, bottom of the 8th. Sean Figgins at second. Ryan Vogelsong sweating it out. He can't win it, but right now he has nothing to do, but he could lose it. One and 2. Two and 2. Casilla knows that Hanley Ramirez is on deck. For 5 years, he pitched under another name, Jairo Garcia. He borrowed that birth certificate of a friend who was about 3 years younger. A lot of them do that coming out of the Dominican. Holding up again, no swing. 3-2. So a full count. On deck, Hanley Ramirez. Three and 2 to Yasiel Puig. And foul back into fastball alley. And no reason 96 miles an hour to even guess. $43,068. Hope you'll be out here to see the Giants and the Dodgers tomorrow night. Madison Bumgarner and Paul Maholm. Got him. So Puig strikes out. The Dodgers leave Figgins at second. And at the end of 8, a 1-1 tie. for Chris Withrow, single to left. He stays in the game and plays third base. That means that Kenley Jansen, the new Dodger pitcher, he would go in Juan Uribe's spot. So what the Dodgers do with this maneuver, when they come up in the ninth inning, you have Ramirez, Gonzalez, and Kemp. If anybody gets on, you have Crawford, but not Juan Uribe. So Kenley Jansen getting ready to pitch to Pablo Sandoval, Brandon Crawford, and Brandon Hicks. Sandoval has grounded to first, double to left, grounded to second. So 1 for 3. All of the at-bats as a left-handed batter. For Kenley Jansen, he is 0-1, an earned run average of 3.3. Jansen has 27 strikeouts and 7 walks. So the starting pitchers pretty much have the way fate deals the cards. Beckett, who hasn't won since Colorado in 2012, made his 14th start, pitched well enough to win, as so often happens. Instead, he winds up with his 5th no decision this year. And Ryan Vogelsong certainly pitched well enough to win. He gives up only a run. His chance to win back-to-back wins since September of 2012, and that disappeared. So the starting pitchers pitched exceptionally well. The totals let you 1 run, 5 hits, no errors for each side. One and one. Kenley Jansen and Pablo Sandoval. Sandoval is 1 for 10 and has struck out 7 of the 10 at-bats against him. Ground ball. Ramirez. 1 away. Now the batter is Brandon Crawford, who has certainly had a big night with the glove.
Shortstop number 35, Brandon Crawford.
With the bat against Kenley Jansen, Brandon is 0 for 4. And then Brandon Hicks, whose home run in the 7th inning tied the game up. Ball 1. Brandon Crawford has walked, flied to center, and struck out, but interesting hitter. From the 7th inning on this year, he's hitting .333. 1-1. Kenley has been successful, 11 of 13 save opportunities. 1-2. Overthrowing a little bit to get to 96. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Kenley had a save in Minnesota. Two and two. Got him. By the way, we thought it was a little strange. We mentioned when Sean Figgins was going to stay in the game and play third base. That means if the Dodgers get home again in the 9th inning, they have Ramirez, Gonzalez, Kemp, and Crawford, but then not Uribe, and that seems strange. We get the report now. Juan Uribe left a minor hamstring soreness, and better to get him out than earlier than too late. Now Brandon Hicks struck out twice and then homered, his 6th home run of the year, and that tied up the game. For Hicks, this would be the first time he has ever faced Kenley Jansen. Check swing, did he? Yes, he did. 1-1 to Brandon. Jansen has made 10 pitches to get 2 out. One and two. He now has 28 strikeouts in 17 innings. Two and two. Waiting, Gregor Blanco, who just got in the game, batting 9th. Got him. So Jansen comes in, strikes out 2. That gives him 29 strikeouts, and here come the Dodgers. It's Ramirez, Gonzalez, and Kemp, and another look at that fastball for strike 3. On the dugout into the Dodger clubhouse and join host Alana Rizzo. She goes one-on-one with Don Mattingly to get the inside scoop from the Diamond. Don't miss Dodgers Clubhouse Monday at 5 on Sportsnet LA. Kenley Jansen made 13 pitches to retire the side. So now in the bottom of the 9th inning in a 1-1 tie, Santiago Casilla will be pitching to the heart of the Dodger lineup. Ramirez, Gonzalez, and Kemp. Ramirez 0 for 3, 2 ground balls and a fly ball. And ball 1 to the screen. Whoa. He had to be looking for anything but an off-speed pitch. Hanley way out in front of that one. 1 ball and 1 strike. Ninth inning, 1-1. 1-2. Dodgers scored a run on a scoring fly ball, sacrifice off the bat of Drew Butera, and the Giants picked up their run in the home run by Brandon Hicks. 1-2. Fastball, a hopper, smothered by Crawford. He makes another fine play at shortstop. Brandon has certainly put the brand on this game. He's been everywhere. And he takes a base hit away from Ramirez. High fastball. The glove is here to stay. Another wonderful play by Brandon Crawford. Up and at him. Casilla, that a way to go. So Crawford is dazzling at shortstop, and now the batter is Gonzalez, who knows all about Brandon Crawford, who took a hit away from him in the 4th inning. Again, a wide open defense. They put Hicks 25 feet out into right field. They put Belt right on the foul line. The outfield very deep, especially Pence. 1 ball, no strikes. Two and 0. Sandoval way over off the line, which is where he was when Gonzalez in the 2nd inning hit an off-speed pitch that looked like it was going for the shortstop hole, and that's exactly where Sandoval was to throw him out. Meanwhile, Puig sits deep in thought, having struck out in the 8th inning. And that's ball 3. Casilla throws hard. 12 strikeouts, 7 walks. Hit to the hole. It's the second baseman in right field to throw him out. Well, that's got to be maddening. The Adrian Gonzalez trying to find a hole, and there just isn't any against that defensive alignment. So Brandon Hicks in right field cuts it off 20 feet out on the grass and nails him. So the batter now is Matt Kemp. Wonderful play. And Casillas all wound up in excitement. Yeah, good play. Matt Kemp grounded to third, single to right, scored the only run, and then last time up, furious at himself when he struck out on ball 4. And ball 1. Matt Kemp in batting against Casilla, 3 for 11. One and one. So Andre Ethier twice now has gone to the bat rack, helmet, gloves, but Figgins went up and batted for him. Andre would be batting for Kenley Jansen. That would be after Crawford. Matt Kemp has struck out 35 times. He has 4 home runs, 9 runs batted in. Almost 3-1 strikeouts to walks. Whoa, Casilla was running off the field. Oh, that really ticks off an umpire. Hmm. 2-2. So a good fastball at 96 takes care of Matt Kemp. Dodgers go in order, and we head to the 10th in a 1-1 tie. Inning in a 1-1 tie. Dodgers have used Beckett, Withrow, Jansen, and now J.P. Howell. The Giants have used Vogelsong, Affeldt, and Casilla. For J.P. Howell, as he tunes up and gets ready, he comes in with a record of 1-2, a fine ERA of 2, and he'll be looking at the Giants, starting with Gregor Blanco, who came in a double switch. So it's Blanco, Pagan, and Pence against Howell. Blanco is 1 for 6 in the past against Howell. Corners are up. Full swing foul ball. Figgins in on the grass, and the gap in right center. In the Dodger bullpen, Jamie Wright begins to warm up. You have Pagan following. He's a switch hitter, and then Pence. Oh, and 2 the count to Gregor Blanco. Finishes up a lot of games for Michael Morse, but he himself doesn't get a lot of chances. Blanco, so far this year, on the road, 1 for 26. He's from Venezuela. He has a twin, Gregory, who played in the Angels and Pirates minor league system. He was a catcher and decided to give it up and became a phys ed teacher. And his three brothers, well, there's Gregor, Gregory, and Gregsman. And they said, how come? Why? Everything with G, everything sounding alike. He said, my mom just liked the names. She even named our house the Gregs and put a sign up. JP 2-2. Gregor originally signed with the Braves. He was only 16. Made his debut in the big leagues 8 years later. When Matt Cain pitched his perfect game, Blanco made a spectacular catch to preserve it. High fly ball going back on it is Crawford. Still room. So Blanco 1 for 27 on the road this year. By the way, when Cain was honored during a pregame ceremony, he gave Blanco a photo of the celebration and a note thanking him. It was a big play to save the perfecto. So a long out to left, one down. Now Pagan. Angel flied to right, grounded to short, grounded to first, and in the seventh inning doubled. Withrow came in, got Pence, and Pagan stayed at second. That was the inning when Hicks hit the home run to tie up the game, 1-1. Well, we told you about these two teams. The Giants are 9-8, having played 17 one-run games. The Dodgers are 4-7, having played 11. Now you start talking about extra innings. The Giants have done well. They are 4-1 in extra inning games. The Dodgers are weary of extra inning games. They've already played. This will be the 9th extra inning game. Two balls and no strikes. Waiting on deck, Hunter Pence. Pagan spent the night batting left-handed. As a right-handed batter, he's hitting .327. Two of his 3 home runs hit right-handed. 3-0. And ball 4. So the Giants get their first base runner since Pagan doubled in the 7th inning, and it's Pagan.
Number 8, Hunter Pence.
So Hunter Pence, 1 for 4 coming up. Checking with Tim Flannery before he does. Hunter grounded to short, single to center, grounded to third, flied to right. Went 1 for 3 against Beckett, 0 for 1 against Withrow. Timeout for the moment. Let's see. Andre Ethier is now going to come out and make a play. Looking at the Dodger lineup, Crawford is due up. Matt Kemp made the last out, so Ethier will go into center field for Matt Kemp. And now we'll see about Jamie Wright. Here he comes, so we'll be right back. so that he would bat in Uribe's original spot. It had also been occupied by Jansen and Howell. And Jamie Wright will now go into Matt Kemp's spot since Kemp made the last out in the 9th inning. Jamie is 2-2. He has been in more games, I think, than most people thought. This will be his 17th game in the Dodgers, 17 out of 35. So every other day, it seems, Jamie's in the game. By the way, when the Giants leave, Miami will be here. And Miami will be here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 12, 13, and 14. And one of the young players who has really caught our fancy is Giancarlo Stanton of Miami. In the top of the 11th inning of a 1-1 tie, a 2-out error gave Giancarlo a chance, and he homered to right center at Petco. It's his 11th home run. He now has 40 runs batted in, and the Marlins are leading 3-1, bottom of the 11th. Hunter Pence, 1 for 4. Big swing, 0-1 the count. Hunter Pence going up against Jamie Wright. 111. 1 for 9 in the past. At first base, Angel Pagan, and he's a threat to run. Pagan has stolen 6 out of 8. Buster Posey on deck. One ball and one strike. Pence 1 for 4. Posey 0 for 2. They've walked Posey twice. Hunter just wears you out watching him. He's never calm. In the dirt, gets away from Butera. There goes Pagan easily into second. So a tiebreaker out there. We'll wait on the call. And trying to backhand that pitch instead of shifting the body. And Butera pays the price. So it's a pass ball. 2-1. In the dirt again, and Drew blocks it. 3-1. Neither team is well rested. The Giants flew from Pittsburgh, and the Dodgers had that long haul and got here at 11 o'clock last night. They have to be a weary bunch. Both teams, really. Three and 1 to Pence. And a really nice short hop pick. That could have been a wild pitch. So Pence draws the walk. First and second with 1 out. And Buster Posey coming up.
Catcher, number 28.
What he couldn't do on the pass ball, he does this time. So 2 on, 1 out. Posey walked twice. Fly deep to center. Kemp near the wall to catch it in the 3rd inning and grounded out in the 5th. We've told you at the very start of the game that Posey is a terrific hitter at any time, but especially with men on. He has a career batting average of .327 with runners on base. And ball 1. Hector Sanchez, the catcher, is out on deck. Sanchez beat the Dodgers in San Francisco. And Jamie's struggling. Giants have received 6 walks. Bochy still trying to figure out how he can cash in at least one of them. Two on, 1 out, 10th inning, 1-1. So Wright trying to keep the ball down, hoping to get a ground ball, maybe a double play to get out of it. But he's been too low. Now he is 1 pitch away from loading him up. And Hector Sanchez will be coming up to bat for Casilla. Three and 0 in there. Hunter Pence at first, Angel Pagan at second, 1 out, 3-1 to Buster. And that'll go foul and back into the crowd. Three and 2, 1 out. Posey's numbers are very impressive, especially when you realize he has reached that stage where he has walked more than he has struck out. 3 and 2. Runners hold, fouled away. Still 3 and 2. One run, 5 hits, and no errors for each side. Giants have left 7. Dodgers with the double play did not leave anybody in the 7th, 1 in the 8th. So they've left 6. 3 and 2 the count. Big play. Runners stay, and ball 4. Another pitch way down and dirty. So all of a sudden the Giants, without having to hit the ball, have loaded the bases. And it's the old story, there's no defense for a walk. And the batter now will be Hector Sanchez to bat for Santiago Casilla. Hector Sanchez was born in Venezuela. After the 9th grade, he attended a baseball academy for 2 years. And at the age of 15, they switched him from shortstop to catcher. We understand his family was very poor. They struggled to pay for shoes and clothes and books for 3 children. If you see him up close, on his right wrist, he has a tattoo of an A flanked by blue angel wings in honor of his late grandfather, Armando. And then on his left arm is a tattoo that says, "Learn like you will live forever. Live like you will die tomorrow." And he has the same 2 sentences on his right arm in Spanish. So Hector waits, and the Dodgers try to counsel Jamie Wright. Another thing, as we look at Pagan at third, Pence at second, Posey at first. Hector Sanchez has a lot of other tattoos, but on the left knuckles he has a tattoo that spells out love, and on his right knuckles the tattoo spells out hope. First word he said he learned in English was hope. And ball one. Hector, a switch hitter, is hitting just 194 left, 357 right. His power is on the left side. He has 2 home runs, and they have both come that way. 1 ball and no strikes. And a towering fly ball to right, going all the way to the track is Puig. That's going to be good enough for a run. And the throw coming into the infield, tagging to score is Pagan, and the Giants take a 2-1 lead. By the way, an interesting note about Hector Sanchez. Coming up with the bases loaded, he is 2 for 2 with a grand slam. And now he has a scoring fly ball. So he's missed a clutch. So Santiago, fly ball to deep right, good enough to score Pagan, and good enough to advance Pence to third. Holding at first, Posey. In the Dodger bullpen, Brandon Lee begins to loosen up. Brandon Belt, 0 for 4. So 3 walks and a fly ball, plus a pass ball. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 10th, they'll have Carl Crawford, Andre Ethier, and then Drew Butera. And hit to the hole and through. That'll bring Pence in. Down to second goes Posey. 2 runs here in the 10th inning. Now the first run belongs to Howell. So 3 runs and 6 hits as Pence carries one in on the base hit to left field by Brandon Belt. So the pitcher of record is J.P. Howell. 3-1 in favor of the Giants, who are trying to beat the Dodgers not only 5 out of 7. They're also trying to win 6 of the last 7 games here at Dodger Stadium. And, of course, they would also push the Dodgers to 3.5 games back. So Sergio Romo gets up in the bullpen to ask to close it up for San Francisco. And that's going to go down the line, slicing foul back into the stands. Tomorrow night, Madison Bumgarner and Paul Maholm. Saturday afternoon, Matt Cain and Zach Greinke. Sunday afternoon, Tim Hudson and Clayton Kershaw. So Justin Turner hanging out with Greinke and Kershaw. Two out. Off the plate. Sandoval grounded to first, double to left, and twice grounded to second. Posey out there at second base, Belt at first with 2 down. Chopper to the right side. Gordon makes the play, but the Giants pick up 2. And we're heading to the bottom of the 10th. It'll be Crawford, Ethier, and Butera. 3-1 Giants. In the top of the 10th inning, take a 3-1 lead into the bottom of the 10th inning, and the boy from Brawley, Sergio Romo, who remembers to this day his first time at Dodger Stadium. He could point out the seat to you down the left field line just inside the foul pole. Romo coming in 2-0 for the year, 10 for 10 against the opposition, and Joaquin Arias comes in with him to take over at third base for Pablo Sandoval.
Leading off the bottom of the 10th for the Dodgers, left fielder number 3, Carl Crawford.
So Carl Crawford would start it off for the Dodgers. Carl has struck out, walked, and singled. 1 for 2, hitting .260. Giants with, as we said, a very good record in extra inning games. 4-1. Dodgers have been in more extra inning games than you would expect. They've already, this is their 9th. And they are 3-5. One and one. Dodgers at home this year 6-9. They've done better on the road, 13-7, but they are home. 1-1. 1-2. So Crawford trying to lead the Dodgers back against one of the better relievers in the game, Sergio Romo. Andre Ethier waits on deck. And a high fly ball to left. Blanco is there. So Crawford goes 1 for 3 with a fly ball to left.
Center fielder, number 16.
And the batter now, Andre Ethier, for his first at bat of the night. Sergio Romo, like so many others, went through a terrible experience as he prepares to pitch to Ethier. He was about 15, sophomore in high school, and he rode BMX bikes. Sold a lot of newspapers to get the money to buy the bike. Came out of a flip on the bike, landed on his head. He not only had a bad concussion, he broke his collarbone, and the doctors first thought he was totally paralyzed. For 5 days he was in and out of concussions, finally recovered, and here he is after that pitching in the big leagues. 0-2 the count to Andre Ethier. Andre Ethier 1 for 7 in the past against Romo. Oh, and 2. And that's going to go foul down the line, out of play. Drew Butera on deck. Sean Figgins stayed in the game, so he would bat fourth if the inning is still alive. No balls, 2 strikes. Almost nicked him, and in fact got him on the arm. Grazed him. I think Romo was ready to argue, and Posey nodded yes, yes. And that was that. So Ethier is hit by the pitch. Greg Gutierrez due up, and Scott Van Slyke will come up and bat for him. Just grazed him on the right forearm right there. I think it got a little.
Your attention, please. For the Dodgers.
So here's Van Slyke.
For Gutierrez, number 33, Scott Van Slyke.
One out, Ethier at first, and here's Scotty. 3 home runs, 5 runs batted in, hitting .268. And looking again at Romo's work, Van Slyke has never faced him until tonight. Big, slow breaking ball, ball 1. 3 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the Giants. 1 run, 5 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. Another slow curve for a strike. 1-1. Vogelsong, Affeldt, Casilla, and Romo. And another breaking ball hit. Fair ball. Right up along the line. So Van Slyke taps out, and the Dodgers are now down to their last out.
Third baseman, number 18,
John Figgins coming up. Figgins got into the game and flared a base hit to left field in the 8th inning. Dodgers scored their run on a sacrifice fly. Jamie Wright set up the run. However, the actual defeat will be charged to J.P. Howell, who walked the leadoff man in the 10th inning, Angel Pagan. And then there were 2 more walks and 2 runs scored. Breaking ball strike. 0-1 to Figgins. Matt Kemp had a tough night, struck out twice, singled and scored the only run on the sacrifice fly by the catcher Drew Gutierrez. As far as Adrian Gonzalez and his birthday is concerned, it was not a good birthday. 32 years old today. There's a shot back to Romo, and that is that. So the Dodgers come home and lose after a 5-4 road trip. Their record at home is now 6-10. They also fall 3.5 games behind San Francisco, who has now beaten them not only 5 out of 7, but 6 of the last 7 times they've played here at Dodger Stadium. With that, we'll see you tomorrow night. Bumgarner and Mahalam. Until then, we wish you a very pleasant good evening, everybody.